I had always been adventurous, but that night I made a decision I would come to regret. It was a moonless night, the kind of inky darkness that seemed to swallow everything in its path. The wind howled ominously, making the trees sway like sinister specters. I was alone, except for my trusty old car and the long, winding road that stretched out ahead. I was driving to visit my parents, a route I had taken countless times before. It was a journey of routine and familiarity, and I had become complacent. The road was eerily empty, not a single pair of headlights in sight. The dim glow of my car's dashboard was my only companion. The radio crackled with static, and the sparse signal was filled with whispers that sent shivers down my spine. Dismissing it as a mere technical glitch, I turned it off and tried to shake the unease that had settled over me. But the feeling of being watched, of not being alone, lingered. As I continued to drive, my headlights illuminated a lone figure on the side of the road. It was a woman, her tattered white dress billowing in the wind. Her long, disheveled hair covered her face, obscuring her features. I slowed down, my heart racing, and rolled down the window. "Are you okay?" I called out, my voice trembling. The woman didn't respond, her hair continuing to sway with the breeze. Something about her sent chills through my body, and an unsettling sensation gnawed at me. Without another word, I accelerated and left her behind. Minutes turned into hours as I drove deeper into the desolate night. The road seemed to stretch endlessly, and the sense of isolation grew more profound. I tried to distract myself by turning on the radio again, but the static remained persistent, now accompanied by a faint, haunting melody that sounded like a dirge. I needed to shake off the unease, so I decided to call my parents. But when I reached for my phone, I realized it was missing. Panic set in as I retraced my steps mentally, but I couldn't remember putting my phone down or leaving it behind. My eyes darted to the rearview mirror, and I gasped in horror. There, in the back seat, was the woman from the roadside, her disheveled hair still obscuring her face. How had she gotten inside? I hadn't heard a thing. I swerved the car, narrowly avoiding a collision with a tree. My heart raced as I demanded answers from the woman who now occupied my back seat. "Who are you? How did you get in here?" She didn't answer, but her presence seemed to grow stronger, the temperature in the car dropping noticeably. My breath fogged in the cold air, and I could see it billowing around the woman's form. Desperation and fear clouded my judgment as I tried to force her out of the car. My hands passed through her as if she were nothing but a shadow. I was trapped with this spectral intruder, hurtling down the dark road with no way out. I contemplated pulling over and fleeing the car, but the thought of leaving myself exposed in the middle of nowhere was even more terrifying. I was trapped between the unknown of the night and the sinister presence in my back seat. Minutes turned into hours as we continued down the winding road. The woman in the back seat remained silent, her hair still obscuring her face. I couldn't take it anymore. The oppressive silence, the cold, and the terror were driving me to the brink of madness. Suddenly, the headlights illuminated a desolate gas station up ahead. It was the first sign of civilization I had seen in hours. Desperation overcame me, and I pulled into the station's dimly lit lot. The woman in the back seat remained motionless. I jumped out of the car and ran into the gas station, hoping to find help or at least a phone. The bell above the door jingled, announcing my entrance, but the interior was empty. It was as if the place had been abandoned for years. The shelves were stocked with dusty, expired snacks, and the cash register was open and empty. My heart sank as I realized there was no one here to help me. I reached for my phone, hoping against hope that I had left it behind somewhere, but it was gone, just like before. As I turned to leave, I saw her. The woman from the back seat stood in the doorway, her hair still concealing her face. My scream caught in my throat as I stumbled backward. With nowhere left to run, I realized I was trapped, Not just on that desolate road, but in a nightmarish world I couldn't escape. The woman slowly approached, her footsteps echoing in the empty gas station. And then, in the dim light, her hair parted, revealing a face twisted in agony and anger. As her eyes met mine, I knew I had made a terrible mistake that would haunt me for the rest of my life. I had ventured into the darkness that night, thinking I was alone on the road, but I had been gravely mistaken. In that remote and forsaken place, I had crossed paths with something beyond comprehension, and the consequences of that encounter would forever haunt my waking nightmares. As the woman drew closer, her frigid touch brushed my skin, and a bone-chilling whisper filled my ears. "You should have stopped." And then, everything went black.